Good evening. Welcome back to another Classic Comics live stream. I hope you're having a good Memorial Day weekend. Okay, so as usual, I'm going to go through a few of the headlines over the last week here as relates to movies, particularly superhero, sci-fi, that sort of thing. So we'll start with Deadpool. So tickets for Deadpool and Wolverine have gone on sale. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. Deadpool and Wolverine first day ticket sales set R-rated record, climbed to 8 to 9 million. All right, after bemoaning the state of the 2024 box office, AMC Theaters chief Adam Aaron finally has something to roar about. Aaron wrote on Wednesday that the Ryan Reynolds Hugh Jackman starred Deadpool and Wolverine is off to a supersized start and set a new record for first day advance ticket sales for the country's largest movie circuits. Tickets went on sale Monday for the Marvel Studios sequel, which officially opens in North America on July 26th, following previews on the evening of July 25th. Some 200,000 movie fans have bought their AMC tickets already. This is more day one ticket sales at AMC than for any other R rated movie ever, the CEO wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter. Online ticketing service Fandango, which services a majority of movie circuits, also reported brisk first day sales for Deadpool and Wolverine, saying they were the best of 2024 to date, as well as a franchise best and the best for an R-rated feature. While neither Fandango nor AMC provided dollar figures, insiders tell The Hollywood Reporter that first day sales are likely around 8 to 9 million if extrapolating the 200,000 stats cited by Aaron. None of the parties involved are officially commenting, but all sales indicate that Deadpool and Wolverine will cross 100 million in its debut, a feat no 2024 title has yet achieved, as domestic box office revenue slips 20% behind 2023, due in large part to production delays tied to the strikes. The industry mantra has become survive to 25, and one used frequently by Aaron when addressing anxious investors. 2016's Deadpool and 2018's Deadpool 2 topped the list of biggest R-rated openers at 132.4 million and 125 million, respectively, not adjusted for inflation. Directed this time out by Sean Levy, Deadpool and Wolverine continues the irreverent superhero franchise that's the brainchild of Reynolds, who helped persuade Jackman to once again don the Wolverine costume and star with him in the threequel. Deadpool and Wolverine is the first rated R movie ever released by Marvel and Disney. Okay, so what does this say about superhero fatigue? Because obviously, superhero fatigue has been something. Oh, hey, Adega. Hello, sir. Thank you for stopping by again, as always. Good to see you. So, what does this say about superhero fatigue? Because obviously, we've heard a lot about that. And I do think superhero fatigue is a thing. But I think this may show one thing is they say in the article, it's just there's just a dearth of other options. This is the only movie that I think a lot of people are really looking forward to for this year. So I think that's just a big part of it. And a big part of it is Jackman coming back to play Wolverine again. I think the anticipation of that is a big part of it too. But we should consider that maybe that, it's more than just superhero fatigue, or at least more complicated. Maybe there's other factors involved. I, for one, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic about it. I doubt that it's going to be like some really great movie, but I think it'll be entertaining and be a fun time, if nothing else. Hopefully, it will be. And of course, the movie doesn't come out until July, so that advanced ticket number's probably going to go up quite a bit between now and then. So it should continue to set records. All right, let's move on here. Okay, so this next story is from comicbookresources.com. Uh, Taylor Swift allegedly met with Kevin Feige for an MCU role. There have been rumors that Taylor Swift might have a cameo in the highly anticipated Deadpool and Wolverine. However, a new report claims the singer songwriter has met with Marvel boss Kevin Feige for a role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Taylor Swift might be keeping herself busy with her record breaking Eras tour, but that doesn't stop fans from believing she could multitask. The singer has been rumored to be part of Deadpool and Wolverine, and the film's cast and director did nothing to clarify the chatter around her participation. Now, it turns out she might actually be joining the MCU. According to insider Daniel Rickman, Taylor Swift reportedly had a meeting with Marvel boss Kevin Feige to discuss a role in the MCU. Swift has been rumored to be connected with the MCU for years. Fans believe she had something to do with the universe after releasing her track In Game off her 2017 Reputation album, with people speculating she might be in 2019's Avengers Endgame. She wasn't, but the chatter around her involvement in the superhero universe didn't end there. The report doesn't reveal for which role she allegedly met with Feige. The singer songwriter is currently in the European leg of her massive Eras tour, so she wouldn't be available for a huge role. On top of that, after the tour, she also plans to make her directorial debut with a feature for Starlight Searchlight Pictures. So for whatever the role is, it has to be small or a cameo. What? So she's going to direct a movie, I guess. Brilliant. Can't wait. The rumors of Taylor Swift appearing in Deadpool and Wolverine have been going on for months. She is rumored to play the X-Men character Dazzler, and there has been no official confirmation or denial of her involvement in the film. However, there are many signs that she might be in the film. The singer shares several similarities with the character, including the fact that Swift's middle name is Allison, just like Dazzler's name, and they're both singers. To promote the film, lead star Ryan Reynolds' latest Instagram post showing his Deadpool engaged in gun and claw fight. A gun and claw fight with Jackman's Wolverine also includes a Swift reference. Reynolds, who is a close friend of Swift's, captioned the poster, quote, "Don't bring claws to a gunfight. This might not mean anything to the untrained eye, but Swifties know this resembles Swift's Call It What You Want lyrics. I brought a knife to a gunfight. I guess. I don't know. I'll take your word for it on that. Reynolds recently deflected the answer about Swift's role. Announcing a new solo comic book series for Dazzler, Marvel continued to fuel the rumors that Swift might be playing her, as each issue of the limited series will feature some songs. Get ready to sing along some new original songs off her new album, writer Jason Liu noted. Some of them may be about her exes. uh, okay, so look, I don't believe for a minute that she's going to be in Wolverine and Deadpool because, first of all, with the movie coming out in a couple of months, and if she's on this tour, it seems hard to believe she's going to be able to take the time from her tour to do film anything. I mean, it might be like some little like post credit scene, I guess, where she's on screen for for 10 seconds or something like that. But the thing is, if she were in this movie, Marvel would be promoting the hell out of that. They would be letting everybody on the freaking planet know that she's in this movie. No talent? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan myself. Take what you want from it. I mean, she's popular. There's no denying it. But if she were in this movie, Marvel would be promoting the hell out of this. They'd be doing everything they can to stir up excitement and get people worked up for a huge opening weekend. They wouldn't be playing coy. They wouldn't be like holding their cards to their chest and like, oh, maybe, maybe not. And even if they weren't doing that, there'd definitely be someone out there who would, someone on the set, or someone in her entourage or one of her people leaking it out that, oh, yeah, she's in this. So I don't buy this for a minute myself. Now, maybe she has talked to them about a role somewhere down the line. I could see that. And Dazzler is the character that makes the most sense, I think. But she's not going to be in Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't buy that for a minute. Okay, let's move on here. Now, speaking of Disney, so they have had more layoffs this week. This is from Variety. Pixar hit with layoffs as 175 staffers cut. Pixar was hit with layoffs on Tuesday as approximately 175 employees, or 14% of its workforce, were let go. In a note to staff, Pixar President Jim Morris said that individuals who have been impacted by the layoffs will be notified on Tuesday. Calendar invites to speak with a leader have already gone out to those individuals, and we anticipate we will have connected with everyone impacted by the end of the day. Pixar employees have been bracing for layoffs since January, but cuts were smaller than the speculated 20% reduction that was reported at that time. Once considered the gold standard of family films, Pixar has been struggling since the pandemic when its corporate overlords at Disney used the pedigree of the animation brand to prop up its new streaming service. During that period, new offerings Soul, Luca, and Turning Red were sent directly to Disney Plus, and family audiences became accustomed to expect those movies at home. When it reverted to prioritizing theatrical releases, moviegoers rejected the $200 million budgeted Toy Story spinoff Lightyear, which marked Pixar's second consecutive misfire after 2020's Onward, which was released just before theaters shut down due to COVID. Yeah, that came out, what, a week or two before the lockdowns came? Um, let's see. Okay, so although Elemental finished with 495 globally, much stronger than its disappointing opening weekend would have suggested, it's far less than past Pixar movies have earned. Pixar has admitted these mistakes and has since attempted to course correct. During COVID, or quote, during COVID, we trained audiences to watch our movies on Disney Plus. I won't say there was a lot of choice. Morris told Variety last summer. For periods of time, it was the only thing we could do. We have a little work to unring the bell and motivate families to go to the theater and not wait a few months to see it on Disney Plus. Exhibitors believe the studio's upcoming sequel, Inside Out, on June 14th will have the humor and charm to recapture the animation company's luster. Pixar's slate also includes Elio in 2025 and Toy Story 5 in 2026. Among the company's biggest movies are Finding Nemo, Up, and The Incredibles. Disney endured layoffs in 2023, which then represented around 3.6% of total headcount of approximately 220,000 worldwide, as the media conglomerate attempted to cut costs. Pixar laid off 75 employees in the middle of last year as part of those company-wide cutbacks, according to Reuters. These additional layoffs are due to the company's efforts to scale back on direct-to-consumer series in favor of feature films. Morris concluded his staff-wide memo saying, despite the challenges in our industry over the past years, you have all consistently shown up to contribute, collaborate, innovate, lead, and do great work at the studio. I give you my deepest thanks, and for those who will be leaving us, I'm hopeful that our paths will cross again, both professionally and personally. Don't let the door hit your butt on the way out. So, yeah, I mean, it just shows how Disney continues to bleed money. And, their latest earnings report, again, there was a bit of strife around it. Actually did okay thanks to all the firings they did and writing off a lot of the content on Disney Plus and that sort of thing. But they had to fire a lot of people to get those results, and it's not surprising they're continuing with the firing. What's the saying? The firings will continue until morale improves, or at least until the stock price improves. But hey, you screw around. That Disney has effed around for the last several years, and now they're finding out. All right. Let's move on to Paramount. Let's talk about them for a minute here. And this is from a website called thestreamable.com. Sony and Apollo plan to keep Paramount Movie Studio and IP, but auction off Paramount Plus, CBS, MTV, and linear networks. The sale of a company as large as Paramount Global is a highly involved process. The company's primary shareholder, Sherry Redstone's haste to do business with David Ellison and Skydance Media led to an exclusive negotiating period regarding a merger. But on May 3rd, that window ended without a deal. Now, Paramount executives have moved on to considering a $26 billion offering from Sony and their private equity partner, Apollo Global Management. There has been a significant amount of talk regarding the regulatory issues that would face Sony and Apollo in their attempt to get control of Paramount. But new details surfacing this week indicate that many of those concerns will be made irrelevant as Sony and Apollo plan to sell off assets that would otherwise potentially run them afoul with government officials. The New York Times has new details about Sony and Apollo's plan for Paramount if they are successful in acquiring the company. The plan would be for Sony and Apollo to form a joint venture with Sony as the controlling partner and an option for Apollo to sell its minority stake in the future. Sony would keep the Paramount Pictures movie studio, folding it into its own movie making operations. Paramount's other assets, including its streamer Paramount Plus and its broadcast and cable networks, including CBS, Nickelodeon, MTV, and Paramount Network, would be auctioned off to the highest bidder. In addition, Deadline reports that anxieties have already arisen in Hollywood circles regarding the deal. The fear is that the theatrical film industry, still trying to climb back to its pre-COVID levels of success, would see yet another decline in the number of annual releases if two major studios merged into one. But sources tell Deadline that the plan would be to continue releasing around 20 movies per year instead of scaling back releases to try and put out more streaming content instead. Federal regulations could compel the sale of CBS if Sony and Apollo execute a purchase of Paramount. As a Japanese company, Sony is not allowed to own an American broadcast TV channel. And Apollo's status as majority owner of Cox Media Group and its attendant TV stations could also cause concern with government rules about how much audience reach one station owner is allowed to have. On the content side of things, the Times reports that Sony's plan would likely entail keeping popular intellectual property from Paramount like SpongeBob SquarePants and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That would give Sony a wide range of new franchises to weaponize as part of its content arms dealing strategy, though it could make Paramount Plus, in particular, a bit harder to sell. Yeah, no kidding. Here's a streaming service and all the costs that go with it, but we're going to keep all the IP. Thank you. In particular, I'm sorry. However, streaming has never been part of Sony's strategy in the United States, and the paper of record reports that it is unlikely to change with an acquisition of Paramount. Warner Brothers Discovery and Comcast both make sense as potential buyers for Paramount Plus, though their interest in the service can hinge on getting some of Paramount's IP as part of the deal. Yeah, I mean, I just don't see why would anyone buy Paramount Plus if you're not getting some of the IP that Paramount owns. I mean, I don't see how that would make much sense. Warner Brothers Discovery could also be a logical home for CBS, as the company does not currently own a major broadcast network. Alternatively, CBS could be sold off station by station to groups like Nexstar or Tegna, whatever that is. There's also quite a ways to go for Paramount and Sony before they can close a deal. Neither side has signed formal non disclosure agreements, much less gotten a look at each other's books, and that process could take weeks. There's no guarantee the process will go further than it already has, but if Sony and Apollo do get control of Paramount, it would almost certainly lead to seismic shifts in the current Hollywood status quo. So I would think that if Warner Brothers was going to pick up any of these assets, like Paramount Plus, they would surely, as I say, want IP. And my understanding is they were very keen to get Star Trek. So, I mean, I don't know what Sony and Apollo's plans are for Star Trek, but again, if you're acquiring Paramount, that's the biggest IP they have. So why else would you do it if you can't get that, you know? Um, but maybe, like the movie rights and the TV or streaming rights could be split up, where you've got Sony and Apollo making Star Trek movies, but Warner Brothers is doing a streaming show on Paramount Plus or something. Of course, the problem with that is that you get into, you know, the the shows and the movies being different animals and they don't sort of line up and what's continuity and what isn't, which is kind of the problem that Star Trek has been having for a few years now. So I'm not sure how that would really work out well. Okay. Let's move on here. Okay. And I've got a story here regarding Venom. So this is from MSNBC or from Games Radar, excuse me. Sorry, Venom fans, Venom 3 has been confirmed to be the last movie in the saga. Bad news, Venom fans, but it looks like the franchise's upcoming third installment will be the alien symbiote's last dance, as Sony has revealed that Venom 3 is the final film in the series. The third and last Venom is going to be huge, said Sony Motion Picture Group chairman Tom Rothman, while speaking on the future of Sony's Spider-Man universe in an interview with Deadline. Rothman's comment gives us hope that the movie will go out with a bang, but also confirms Venom 3 will indeed be the final flick. The franchise was introduced in 2018 with its first installment titled Venom, which also kicked off Sony's wider Spider Man universe. The movie stars Tom Hardy as journalist Eddie Brock, whose inquisitive nature leads him to meet symbiote Venom, who uses Brock as a host, giving him supernatural powers but also controlling his every move. Then in 2021, the unlikely duo hit screens again in Venom Let There Be Carnage, where Brock and his alien ally defeat serial killer Cletus Cassidy, played by Woody Harrelson. Now we look forward to Venom 3, officially titled Venom The Last Dance, which will once again reunite Hardy with his alien alter ego. The movie does not have an official synopsis at this time, but stars Hardy alongside Juno Temple and I'm probably going to butcher this name, but Chiwetel Ejiofor. I don't know. However, just because The Last Dance will be the final episode in the saga, that doesn't mean Hardy will hang up his hat as Brock forever, as fans know that the studio loves a cameo. In fact, we last saw Hardy's Brock toward the end of Marvel's Spider-Man No Way Home, and in turn, Tom Holland's Spider-Man also appeared in Venom's post to post-credit scene. No, he didn't. He was mentioned, but he wasn't He didn't appear, if I'm remembering it right, because the post credit scene, wasn't it Venom meeting the Vulture? Like Michael Keaton's Vulture or something like that. Because I guess maybe due to the the universe sort of multiverse sort of merging thing in No Way Home, Vulture had moved over to the Venom, to Venom's universe or something like that. But he didn't appear, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe they're mentioned that he appeared on TV or something, because I think in Venom he appeared like Eddie Brock saw a newscast or something like that with Spider-Man in it. Maybe that's what they mean. I think that's it. Okay. So who knows where Brock could pop up next? Venom 3 is due to hit theaters on October 25th, 2024, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Venom personally, and I can kind of take or leave the Venom movies. They're okay. I think Tom Hardy is good. He kind of rescues them because he's such a good actor, but it's not like I'm gonna really miss the Venom series all that much. Okay, now speaking of Spider-Man villains, here's another story from IGN. Craven the Hunter producer explains why Sony Marvel movie got pushed back to December. Craven the Hunter producer Matt Tolmach has shared the rationale behind Sony's decision to delay the release of its upcoming Spider-Man spin-off to December. Sony Pictures revealed in April that Craven the Hunter had shifted from August 30th to December 13th in its theatrical release calendar. Tolmach has now explained why the film's release date has changed again, telling Collider it was a strategic move by the studio that underscores its faith in the project. Oh, really? Craven moved to Christmas because we're excited about it, and Christmas is the best release period there is when you get people with time to go back to the movies over and over again, Tolmach said, shedding some light on the latest shift. There was a real reflection of how the studio felt about the movie. We're really excited, but that's a great movie that reflects just the feeling about the movie. Craven the Hunter has suffered multiple delays on its journey to the big screen. Sony originally scheduled it for January 13th, 2023, but later bumped it to October 6th, 2023, without explanation. Uh, Probably reshoots, I'm guessing. The strikes by SAG-AFTRA then pushed it to August 30th of 2024, so about a year and a half after it was supposed to be released. It is Sony's first R-rated Marvel movie, and by vacating its summer release slot, it steers clear of other R-rated films coming up on the calendar for August, including Alien Romulus, Horizon and American Saga. That's that Kevin Costner movie, I believe, that Western, and the highly anticipated reimagining of The Crow. Highly anticipated, by who? Not by me. Releasing in December means Craven the Hunter will now arrive in theaters in the same month as The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, Mufasa, The Lion King, and Sonic the Hedgehog. And while Robert Eggers' remake of the vampire classic Nosferatu is out December 25th. They're doing another remake of that? So, I mean, my take on this is they pushed it back because they're doing reshoots. I have no doubt. My guess is this was shown to test audiences, and they didn't like what they saw, so they pushed the movie back while they did reshoots on it, is my guess. And I mean, you can believe what you want, but I think all their talk about how we just have so much faith in this movie and we believe in it so much is just that's just them kind of kind of that's just spin. Because I just don't see any way this movie is really going to do well. I mean, who nobody wanted to see a Craven movie. I mean, because they can sit there and they can say, "Oh, we have so much faith in this movie." Okay, well, didn't they release Madam Web around the holidays this past December? Well, how did that work out? It was a disaster. And I have no doubt that this will be a disaster too, but I guess they figure we got to put this out, and they're trying to do reshoots to try and salvage this mess while they can, but I doubt it's going to help. Okay, where am I at? 7:30 already. Okay. This will probably be a short stream then cuz I'm going through these pretty quick. All right, so we'll stick with IGN. I've got another one here. George Lucas says there's no original thinking in Hollywood. Studios don't have an imagination. Star Wars creator George Lucas secured his place as a filmmaking legend in 1977, and he's got thoughts about the state of movies today and where they're heading. He opened up about the film industry during a conversation with Brute at the 2024 Cannes Film Festival. Okay, so this is French. So I'm guessing this Brute is a French outlet, and it's not related to the, the men's cologne Brute. I'm guessing it's a different thing. Now at 80 years old, oh wow, is he 80 now? Lucas has had a lot of time to examine movies both up close and from afar, which is why he had a lot to say when asked about what cinema will become in 10 years. Quote, same thing as it is now. What happens now, and it happens in streaming probably more than features, but features, it's the same thing. Nobody knows what to do, he said. The stories they're telling are just old movies. Let's do a sequel. Let's do another version of this movie. And it's not just in movies, but almost in almost everything. There's almost no original thinking. Star Wars is maybe the most notable property to receive a constant feed of sequels and spin-offs. There have been a total of 5 Star Wars movies sent to theaters since the release of Episode 7, The Force Awakens in 2015. That doesn't count spin-off shows, which include Disney Plus outings like The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, Andor, and Ahsoka. Quote, it's like, I saw something, let's do something like that, Lucas added. It's also a way that movies are sold. If you go in and say, I've got something that you've never seen before and you don't understand it, it's very hard to get a deal. Lucas has a lot of thoughts about film today and where it's heading, but he hasn't been heavily involved in his unstoppable sci-fi franchise in quite some time. He sold his Lucasfilm empire to Walt Disney for just over $4 billion in 2012. Has it been that long already? And with multiple films, game shows, and more spin-offs now under its belt, Star Wars has evolved into an entirely different beast. Reflecting on the sale, Lucas spoke about how the galaxy far, far away has changed under Disney's watch for better or worse. Quote, I was the one who really knew what Star Wars what Star Wars was, who actually knew this world, because there's a lot to it. The Force, for example, nobody understood the Force, he said. When they started other ones after I sold the company, a lot of ideas that were in the original sort of got lost, but that's the way it is. You give it up, unquote. Star Wars is continuing forward, of course, with projects like The Acolyte, The Mandalorian and Grogu, Skeleton Crew, Dawn of the Jedi, and much, much more. Okay, well, I can't help noting this is the guy who, a month and a half ago, put out that letter supporting Bob Iger saying, oh, hey, making movie magic, that's not for amateurs. You got to let the pros handle this. Not let someone come in from the outside and try to have a say in things. And yet now here he is saying that nobody knows what to do. Okay, brilliant. And what does that leave you? Well, it leaves you with a failing franchise that Once upon a time was basically a license to print money, and now it's, as they mentioned, it's like they don't know what to do because these projects. Let's look at them here. The stuff that's coming up. The Acolyte. I think that's going to be hot garbage myself. I'm not looking forward to it. I won't be watching it. Mandalorian and Grogu. That's going to be interesting because that's going to be a film, and it'll be interesting to see, is this going to be put in theaters or are they just going to put this on streaming? Because, when you think they're making a Star Wars movie, you think, well, it'll be in theaters. But if they put it in theaters, then they really can't hide the numbers. You know, if they've got it on streaming, they can kind of hide how successful it is. They can kind of play funny with the numbers and all. But you can't really do that with the box office. And I wonder if they're going to be willing to put it out there and let it undergo that kind of scrutiny. It might be, they might decide it's safer to just put it on streaming. Skeleton Crew, I'm not clear on what that is. I know it's got Jude Law in it, and it's like him and a bunch of kids or something. I don't know. Dawn of the Jedi, that is the movie, I think that, what's his face? Oh, he directed Indiana Jones and James Mangold, I think. Isn't that James Mangold? Who up until recently was like one of my favorite filmmakers, but he's kind of taken a nosedive in my estimation in the last year or two. But he did Dial of Destiny. But before that, he did Ford versus Ferrari. He did, um, what else? He did Logan. He did, I think, that remake of 310 to Yuma. And he's done a lot of good stuff. But I mean, none of this is anything I'm really excited about or looking forward to personally. Okay, let's move on here. Okay, let's talk let's talk about the Penguin streaming show because we're all excited about that. This is from The Wrap. Colin Farrell teases just how intense the Penguin spinoff is. It's dark as night. Expect Colin Farrell's The Batman spinoff series, The Penguin, to meet the Robert Pattinson film's intense energy. In fact, the actor told Sirius XM's Jess Cagle that the show is dark as night. Quote, "We did it over a year because that was unfortunate and necessary. There was that unfortunate and necessary strike in the middle for 5 or 6 months, but it was intense," Farrell said. "It's dark. The show is dark as night." Farrell went on to sing the praises of the Batman makeup artist Michael Marino, who was responsible for making him unrecognizable as the classic Batman villain Oswald Cobblepot. Marino returned with Farrell to the limited series to continue his work. And I got to agree. I mean, the makeup work on him is fantastic because he is unrecognizable under it, and it doesn't even look like makeup. If you just showed me a picture of that guy, I'd say that's just what he looks like. I wouldn't think that's even any kind of makeup he's wearing. I'll be going on the publicity tour, Farrell noted. Mike is the gentleman who created, devised, thought up that whole face. I mean, he created the whole character. He created the puppet, and I'm the marionette, is the way I think of it. It feels like an on the nose description of what happened. No pun intended there, I'm sure. He created this beautiful puppet, and I got to animate it, and it was a joy. The spinoff comes out of Matt Reeves' The Batman film starring Pattinson and continues the story of crime boss Oswald Cobblepot following the events of the 2022 movie. Reeves serves as an executive producer on the show, which was created by Lauren LaFranc. Starring alongside Farrell are Kristen Milioti, Fargo and Made for Love, as Sophia Falcone, Clancy Brown. Hey, Clancy Brown. Always good to see him. Of Billions in Dexter's New Blood as Salvatore Moroni, and Michael Zegan of Rescue Me and Boardwalk Empire as Alberto Falcone. So it's going to be him going up against the Falcone family for control of the Gotham underworld. I'm guessing that's what it sounds like. Which, I mean, I guess. But first of all, I mean, honestly, who wanted a penguin show? And I've talked about this before. Who wants a penguin show? I just don't believe anyone really does. And on top of that, it's just, I just, what is the purpose? If they think this is going to bring people to that Max streaming service, they're kidding themselves. And how is he even the penguin, really? I mean, aside from the name, yes, he's called Oswald Cobblepot, but why do people call him the penguin? Because in the movie, he doesn't even wear like a tuxedo. That was the whole point. He wore this tuxedo and he was kind of short and fat, so he looked like a penguin. Ha ha, get it? And of course, with the big nose. And all those things are absent. I mean, they've stripped so much. I'm not against necessarily more realistic portrayals of some comic book properties, and Batman lends itself to that. I think that can work. But at a certain point, you strip so much of the comic book nature of it away that it's really not even the same thing anymore. He's just this generic kind of gangster, and he's not really even the penguin in any meaningful way. Although I will say that Colin Farrell, I think, is good in the part. Okay. 7:42. Okay, well I'll do one more here and I guess that'll be it. This will be a short one. Okay, and this is from theguardian.com. All right. Actors with dwarfism hit out at Hollywood. When it, uh, when it emerged that Hollywood was making a prequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, everyone expected an outcry over the casting of the Candy King, for who can compete with the memory of Gene Wilder in the 1971 original. No one foresaw a bigger backlash over who would play an Oompa Loompa. In a comedic turn at the end of a trailer for Wonka, the green haired, orange skinned little person was apparently trapped inside a jar. It turned out to be Hugh Grant, who stands at 5'11" tall. The digitally rendered coup has been attacked for depriving an actor with dwarfism of the role and is not the sole offender. The upcoming Disney live action remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and the Apple TV Plus series Time Bandits, because they're making a Time Bandits remake, of course, have both drawn scrutiny for offering fewer parts to little people than their original versions. While Hollywood is making imperfect but non trivial steps toward diversity and inclusion, many actors with dwarfism feel they are now caught in a double bind. Technology is erasing roles they used to play in fantasy movies, while directors are still not casting them as textured characters in socially realistic dramas. Unless you're Peter Dinklage, I think he does pretty well. These roles as elves and leprechauns and gnomes and fantasy creatures would be more palatable if the role you're playing after that was a doctor or lawyer or father or husband or love interest, says Mark Povinelli, an actor and activist with dwarfism. That's just not happening. Neither is happening now. Povinelli is president of Little People of America, a nonprofit that supports people of short stature and their families. The 52-year-old objects to the casting of Grant as an Oompa Loompa, characters mainly played by white actors with dwarfism in the 1971 film, and by Deep Roy, a Kenyan British actor with dwarfism, in Tim Burton's 2000 remake starring Johnny Depp as Wonka. Deep Roy's been in a lot of stuff over the years. He was, in fact, I believe he was the body double for one of the hobbits. Was it Frodo? Yes, maybe it was Frodo. And so like when they would do distant shots and you'd see the hobbits next to the actors and they'd actually be small. Of course, those were little people who were serving as body doubles. And I believe Deep Roy was the one for Frodo. But he's actually done a lot of other stuff. Um, Povinelli says by phone from Los Angeles, quote, the most troubling aspect of the Hugh Grant one is that from what I can tell, they have CGI'd him to have the physical attributes of a person with dwarfism, with the larger arms and shorter hands. So he looks like a person with achondroplasia, just like the Oompa Loompas from the film of the early 70s. They're trying to maintain the physicality of dwarfism, but erase the authenticity of dwarfism, which is troubling. And that's why you go, well, this is like a physical version of blackface. Wonka stars Timothy Chalamet and is directed by Paul King, who has pointed out that the authored Roald Dahl made the Oompa Loompas, quote, incredibly sarcastic, judgmental, and cruel about the children visiting the chocolate factory, he told The Hollywood Reporter. So I was really just thinking about that character, somebody who could be a real shit, and then, Hugh, because he's the funniest, most sarcastic shit I've ever met. Povinelli resents the implication that as soon as a role moves beyond caricature to do something more nuanced, it requires a non dwarf actor. When they want to make the Oompa Loompas fleshed out and more of a fully developed character, they immediately remove little people from the conversation. It feels doubly insulting that you're not only removing us from a traditional role, but you're actually trying to dignify the role, and your answer for that is not to use us. Povinelli has appeared in films such as Water for Elephants, Mirror Mirror, and Nightmare Alley, and recently finished the world premiere of The Return of Benjamin Lay, a one-man show at London's Finborough Theatre nominated for an Off-West End Award. But he also has turned down parts over the years because they indulged crude stereotypes. Basically, any part that involves biting somebody on the ankles or the butt or grabbing some woman's breasts. Those were the go to for a long time. It was astounding how many times the character written was supposed to fight somebody. It's always the pugnacious little person who's fighting the big guy, and people find it hilarious. I would get killed if I did that in real life. I've never gotten in a physical fight in my entire life. Paradoxically, fantasy films such as Time Bandits have often been the one genre in which filmmakers have liberated actors with dwarfism to be fully human, he continues. Quote, because they think they are not human, they develop them with a lot of human qualities to make them relatable. When it's written as a little human little person, all of our humanity gets taken away and we're just a sight gag. You get the guy who walks into the office and all the workers make inappropriate jokes and get in trouble for it. They still get all the jokes, but they're at your expense. Whereas the fantasy character is like a fully developed character who just lives his life and happens to live in a world that's adjacent to ours. It's kind of demoralizing. Part of the problem can be traced to the writers' rooms where people with dwarfism are underrepresented, Povinelli comments. What we're not usually getting is authentic representation of people with dwarfism. Every little actor I talk to has a script, just like every actor has a script. The problem is getting even into the room. Being given that initial meeting is often very hard, and being taken seriously is next to impossible. The Oscars So White social media campaign is just one example of how Hollywood has been forced to confront decades of misogyny, racism, and homophobia. Progress has been uneven and the job is far from finished, but Povinelli and others contend that people with dwarfism remain at the margins of the movement. Povinelli reflects, I'm thrilled that there's progress with racial equality and gender and sexual orientation, and even disability and more representation. We're a very specific group, but the dwarfism community, which I consider part of the disability community, has been left behind. And I feel like it's because we had such visual representation in the past in these humiliating roles. No one's interested in writing for us because they feel like they can't write that, but they can't see their minds anything beyond these fantasy characters. The complexities of representation and disagreements within the dwarfism community are evidence in Disney's live action remake of its 1937 animated musical classic Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. In a podcast interview last year, Peter Dinklage, an actor with dwarfism with credits including Game of Thrones and the Marvel Universe, noted that the Latina actress Rachel Zegler has been cast in the lead role and said, quote, "You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that fucking backward story about seven dwarves living in a cave together. Have I not done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough," unquote. It has since transpired that Disney is taking a different approach with the dwarfs reportedly replaced by, quote, "magical creatures," unquote, who are diverse in various ways, only one of whom is a little person. Dylan Postel, an actor with and professional wrestler with dwarfism, does not regard this as progress. "This is seven roles meant for people of my stature, different characters in each role," he says by phone from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. "It's not cave dweller A, B, and C, and D. Each character has separate characteristics, and they're actually heroes of a story in sync with Snow White. Now, not only are you taking the roles away from them, but potential stunt doubles and body doubles and all that. There's more that's more dwarves that you're taking roles away from, and what are we doing for that? There's no real reason that's been given. If you're going to do this, you should be able to have reasoning to back it up, and there's been no reasoning," unquote. Postel, 37, a WWE star who portrayed the leprechaun wrestler Hornswoggle, believes that Dinklage's comments were counterproductive because they imply that dwarf parts seen as old-fashioned typecasting should be wiped out. Quote, "There aren't many roles for dwarves in Hollywood, so him saying that canceled these roles for dwarves in Hollywood. When Peter Dinklage went on that podcast, it hurt the dwarf acting community. He had no issue cashing a check for Elf or other various roles that were made for a dwarf. Yes, he's been killing it and making a name for himself in non-dwarf roles, but he made his name in Elf, and that was a dwarf-specific role, if we're being honest with ourselves. So why is it okay for him to take that role, and why is it okay for him to say what he said and everything halts? Why are we taking the voice of one person? Why are we letting one person speak for a community? There are other voices and other opinion. That's really what irks me. The sudden, "oh no, we can't do this" response instead of taking other people's opinions for the community into consideration. Postel does not feel a need to turn down or condemn roles that some actors with dwarfism might regard as demeaning. Quote, "I just don't have the mindset to complain about that very much. When you do complain and stand on that soapbox and go, oh man, that's not how we should be represented, you're taking yourself too seriously," unquote. And he has no regrets about his own career choices. "My dream when I was 4 years old was to be a WWE superstar. I saw these heroes of mine growing up like the Ultimate Warrior, and I just wanted to be that. Then I got to live my dream as a leprechaun role for just under 10 years of my life and provide for myself and my family and my son. I'm still doing it to this day because WWE gave me the opportunity to play a leprechaun on worldwide television and be known worldwide." Look, if I look back at that and go, man, that was wrong to play that stereotype, I think that's a bit silly because it helped me live my dream of being a pro wrestler. Uh, because it helped me live my dream of being a pro wrestler. Okay. Danny Woodburn, an actor and comedian with dwarfism, has been confronted by plenty of stereotypes during a career spanning more than 3 decades. He has sometimes had success in challenging them and appearing in over 30 films and regular TV roles in shows including NBC's Seinfeld. Where Woodburn says by phone from New York, "I've been blessed to play these rounded characters, but I have also had to fight for those rounded characters so they're not just identified by that one thing. I've received scripts where that's the case, and I said, well, can we work on this because I'm not just that. The pathos for me is not about my size. It's always used to have it where your character with dwarfism had a pathos of disgust around how small they were. They were shunned by society. There's never any strength in those characters." I said, let's not do that. And that's not even the story here. One example was a show that I did where my character was cuckolded by his wife, but he made it about his size. And I'm like, that's not what it was about. It's about the fact that his wife had cuckolded him. We changed everything, and then the end result was a character that could have been played by anybody. It just happened to be me. The 59-year-old adds, quote, even in the 10 or 12 times that I've put on makeup in my career and made myself otherworldly, as it were, my goal was always to have some depth to that character, whatever it was. I didn't want to close that door just because I had dwarfism. I wanted to make sure that I could still play those roles, but so long as there was some depth and some humanity to it. Not that it was just there as a sight gag. Woodburn is National Vice Chair of the Performers with Disabilities Committee at the Screen Actors Guild. American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, or SAG-AFTRA. He produces online shows such as Gumshoes, a kids' adventure series depicting young actors with disabilities portraying a character with a disability, and tries to get studio executives to take a look. But often in Hollywood, he comes across a lack of insight into communities with disabilities, along with barriers that are attitudinal, cultural, and sometimes physical. He recalls it was only a few years ago that I auditioned for a role of a character in a wheelchair, and the auditions were held on the second floor in a building with no access to the second floor other than stairs. You're starting from day one with no intention of hiring a person in a wheelchair to play a person in a wheelchair. That's still hanging over this industry in a lot of ways. What does Woodburn make of the Wonka controversy? Quote, I realize this is a fantastical character, but at the same time, when I look at Hugh Grant's Oompa Loompa, I see the body type of members of the dwarf community who have achondroplasia. If you're going to mimic the body type of those members with achondroplasia, as was the case in the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, why aren't you giving that job to a person with achondroplasia? Otherwise, change the body structure. Unquote. The magic of digital special effects only seems to cut one way, Woodburn notes. Quote, nobody's going to CGI me up to 6 feet tall, leading man character. But we will do the other thing because it's a novelty. It's a gimmick. It's good press. We're not going to do that equally across the board and create opportunities for those who might not get to be on screen in that capacity. Yeah, that's a good point. It only goes one way. I remember God, I forget the name of it, but I remember back in like it was either the late 90s or early 2000s. Gary Oldman, it must have been early 2000s because I don't think they were doing this before then. CGI wasn't along enough, but somewhere in like the mid 2000s, I think Gary Oldman did a movie like that where he played a little person, and using CGI. Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's that they just shrank him or maybe they put his face onto an actor with dwarfism. I'm not sure. But basically, it was a movie where the character was a little person, but it was Gary Coleman, Gary Gary Oldman playing the character. Gary Coleman. The magic of digital effects. The magic of no, Lord, I already did that. Okay, so Hugh Grant doesn't get to do that without CGI, without special effects, so why aren't we doing the reverse? I hear about roles that get cast where they say the actors we're using has to not be disabled and they're going to play disabled later in the film because they become disabled halfway through the movie. Well, okay, you did all these special effects to say make Gary Sinise a double amputee, but we won't make the double amputee and then give him legs for the first half of the movie and then take them away later where he's just himself. We do the one way, but we can't do the other. We can't keep using that argument. I always say if you can make me a martial arts wielding rat on screen, certainly you can do the other things too. Woodburn also points to the example of The Upside, a 2017 film in which Bryan Cranston played a billionaire with quadriplegia, renewing debate over non-disabled actors playing disabled roles. Quote, I explained to Bryan Cranston, yes, you're a name, but people with disabilities aren't going to get the same access to play a role as you did. A person who's a wheelchair user, a person who is quadriplegic is not going to get the same access because we don't have the opportunity, the education, and we certainly aren't being acknowledged as a viable talent. We're not going to get to the point of A-list status until these other things come into play. At this point in the game, we need that help from above, as it were. Quote, we had a discussion about that, and he acknowledged that that was a legitimate concern, and I came up with what I call the Woodburn ratio, which says that if you're an A-lister or director and you're going to take one of these roles away from a person with disability, then you have to give 3 back. If you're playing the lead in a film as a person with disability or person with dwarfism or whatever, then you must seek out and employ 3 others in speaking roles to be on that same film. When we can get on film, then we are seen as part of the community. And when it comes to employment as well, we need to erase the stigma. And the way that we erase the stigma is to give people a chance to be on screen. Wow, that was a long article. That was a mouthful. Ooh, okay. So, well, I'm right at an hour. So I'll go ahead and stop there. And I want to thank those who tuned in to watch the stream and those who will tune in for a rewatch. If you would, please do like the stream before you go. Also, please do sub to the channel. And while you're at it, please do check out some of my other videos while you're here. I will be doing another stream Tuesday evening, doing my Trick Tuesday stream, where I will look at what's the next episode. I believe it's going to be Miri. Yeah, the Star Trek episode Miri. So until then, have a good Memorial Day weekend, and I will see you all next time. Good night.